Chess is a wonderful game. It is a game of strategy and skill. Two players compete against each other. They use their minds to outwit their opponent. People have played chess for centuries. It is known all over the world. Kings and queens, scholars and children have all enjoyed this classic game. It is more than just a game. It is an art, a science, and a sport all rolled into one. You do not need to be a genius to play. You just need to learn the rules and practice. This guide will help you start your journey into the exciting world of chess. Learning chess can be very rewarding. It teaches you how to think ahead. You learn to plan your moves carefully. You also learn to see things from your opponent's point of view. These are useful skills in life, not just in chess. The game is full of patterns and ideas. Each game is a new puzzle to solve. You will feel a great sense of achievement when you make a clever move or win your first game. This guide is designed to make learning easy and fun. We will go through everything step by step so you will not feel overwhelmed by all the information. The beauty of chess is that it is a fair game. Both players start with the same pieces. They have the same army and the same chances to win. There is no luck involved, like rolling dice. The winner is the player who makes the better decisions. This is why it is such a satisfying game to master. Every move you make has a consequence. Your choices shape the entire game. As you learn more, you will start to see the deep strategies hidden within the simple rules. Prepare yourself for a thrilling adventure of the mind, where every decision matters. This guide will teach you everything you need to know to play a full game of chess. We will start with the very basics. You will learn about the board and the pieces. Then, we will explain how each piece moves. We will cover the special rules that can surprise new players. Finally, we will talk about the goal of the game Checkmate. We will also give you some simple tips to help you play well from your very first game. So, find a chessboard, set up the pieces, and get ready to learn the greatest game ever invented. Your exciting chess adventure starts now. The game of chess is played on a special board. This is the chessboard. It is a square board with 64 smaller squares. The squares are arranged in an 8x8 grid. They are colored in a pattern of light and dark squares. You will see a light square, then a dark square, then a light one, and so on. It is very important to set up the board correctly. Always make sure there's a light-colored square in the bottom right corner for each player. A simple rhyme to remember this is white on the right. This ensures all the pieces are on their correct starting squares. Each player commands an army of 16 pieces. One player has the white pieces, and the other has the black pieces. Your army is your team. You have 1 king, 1 queen, 2 rooks, 2 bishops, 2 knights, and 8 pawns. Each piece is different and has its own special way of moving. The two armies are exact mirrors of each other at the start of the game. Learning what each piece does is the first big step to becoming a chess player. The pieces are set up on the 2 rows closest to each player. The row nearest to you is where your most important pieces start. Let's set up your army. The 8 pawns form a wall on the second row, or rank, from your side of the board. They stand in front of all the other pieces, protecting them. Behind the pawns, on the back row, your other pieces are placed. The rooks, which look like castle towers, go in the corners. Next to the rooks, you place the knights, which often look like horses. Then next to the knights, you place the bishops. This leaves 2 empty squares in the middle of your back row for the most important pieces, the king and the queen. Placing the king and queen is simple, but you must get it right. The queen always starts on a square of her own color. So the white queen goes on the white square and the black queen goes on the black square. The king then takes the last remaining square next to his queen. Now your army is ready for battle. The white player always makes the first move. Once you have the board set up correctly and you know whose turn it is to start, you are ready to learn how the pieces move and the real fun can begin. The pawns are the most numerous pieces on the board. You start the game with 8 of them. They may seem weak at first, but they are very important. Pawns are the soul of chess. They form a protective barrier for your more valuable pieces. They control important squares and can be used to attack your opponent's pieces. A pawn's movement is a little bit unusual. On its very first move, a pawn has a choice. It can move forward either 1 square or 2 squares. This special 2-square move can only be made if the pawn has not moved yet. After its first move, a pawn can only move forward 1 square at a time. Pawns can never move backward. This is a very important rule to remember. Once a pawn moves forward, it is committed to that path. This makes your pawn moves very strategic. You must think carefully before pushing a pawn forward. While pawns move straight forward, they capture other pieces differently. A pawn captures diagonally one square forward. It can capture an opponent's piece that is on one of the two squares diagonally in front of it. It cannot capture a piece directly in front of it. The pawn's unique abilities make it a very interesting piece. A line of connected pawns called a pawn chain can be a very strong defensive structure. It can also be used to launch an attack. Because pawns cannot move backward, they can sometimes get stuck. If an opponent's piece is directly in front of a pawn, the pawn is blocked. It cannot move forward or capture the piece blocking it. It must wait until the path is clear or another piece comes into its diagonal capturing range. This creates many interesting situations during a game. Pawns have a secret power. They have the potential to become much stronger. If a pawn manages to march all the way across the board to the other side, it gets a special promotion. When it reaches the last row, the 8th rank for white, or the 1st rank for black, it can be transformed into any other piece except a king. Most players choose to promote their pawn to a queen, as she is the most powerful piece. This is a game-changing event. A humble pawn can become a mighty queen and completely turn the tide of the battle. The rooks are powerful pieces. They look like the towers of a castle. You start the game with 2 rooks, one in each corner of your back row. The rook's movement is simple to remember. It moves in straight lines, horizontally or vertically. It can move as many empty squares as it wants in one direction. It can go forward, backward, or side to side across the board. The rook captures an opponent's piece by moving onto the square that piece occupies. Rooks are most powerful on open files, which are columns with no pawns blocking the way. The knights are the trickiest pieces in chess. They are usually shaped like horses. You have 2 knights, and they start next to your rooks. The knight's move is special and unique. It moves in an L shape. This means it moves 2 squares in one direction, horizontally or vertically, and then 1 square at a right angle. Think of it as 2 forward, 1 sideways. The amazing thing about the knight is that it is the only piece that can jump over other pieces, both friendly and enemy. This makes the knight very useful for surprise attacks, especially in crowded positions at the start of the game. The bishops are your long-range attackers. You start with 2 bishops, placed next to your knights. Each bishop is restricted to squares of 1 color for the entire game. You have a light-squared bishop, which only moves on the light squares, and a dark-squared bishop, which only moves on the dark squares. Bishops move diagonally, as many empty squares as they want. Like the rook, they capture by landing on an opponent's piece. Having both of your bishops, often called the bishop pair, can be a big advantage because together they can control squares of both colors. Rooks, knights, and bishops are often called the minor and major pieces, but all are crucial to a successful game. The knights and bishops are worth about the same, roughly 3 pawns each. A rook is more valuable, worth about 5 pawns. Understanding the value and movement of these pieces is key. The rook is strong in open positions with clear lines. The bishop also likes open diagonals. The knight excels in closed, crowded positions where its jumping ability can be a huge asset. Using these pieces together effectively is a major part of chess strategy. The queen is the most powerful piece on the chessboard. You start with just 1 queen, but she is a true force of nature. Her power comes from her incredible range of movement. The queen combines the moves of the rook and the bishop. This means she can move any number of empty squares in a straight line, horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. She can sweep across the board in any direction, making her a formidable attacker. Because she is so powerful, she is also very valuable. You must be careful not to lose your queen for a less valuable piece. The king is the most important piece in the game. He is not the most powerful, but he is the most valuable. The entire game of chess revolves around the safety of the king. If you lose your king, you lose the game. The king can move 1 square in any direction, forward, backward, sideways, or diagonally. However, he can only move 1 square at a time. This makes him quite slow and vulnerable. You must always protect your king from attack. A key rule is that a king can never move to a square where he would be under attack from an opponent's piece. The starting positions of the king and queen are very specific. As we mentioned, the queen always goes on the square of her own color. The white queen starts on the central light square, which is D1, and the black queen starts on the central dark square, which is D8. The king then occupies the remaining central square next to the queen. This places them in the middle of the back rank, surrounded by their army. In the early part of the game, it is a good idea to move your king to a safer location, away from the center of the board where most of the action happens. Protecting your king while using your queen to attack is a fundamental balance in chess. Because the queen is so strong, it is tempting to bring her out into the battle early. However, this can be risky. If your opponent attacks your queen with a less valuable piece, you will be forced to move her to safety, wasting time. A good strategy is to develop your other pieces first, like the knights and bishops, and keep your king safe. Then, when the time is right, you can unleash your queen to dominate the board and hunt the enemy king. Chess has a few special moves that beginners must learn. These moves can be very powerful and can change the game. The first special move is called castling. This is the only move in chess where you can move two pieces at the same time. Castling involves your king and one of your rooks. The purpose of this move is to get your king to a safer place and to bring your rook into the game more quickly. You can only castle if neither the king nor the rook has moved yet. Also, all the squares between the king and the rook must be empty. There are two types of castling, king side and queen side. To castle king side, you move your king 2 squares towards the rook on the king side of the board. Then, the rook jumps over the king and lands on the square right next to it. To castle queen side, you move your king 2 squares towards the rook on the queen side. The rook then jumps over the king and lands on the square next to it. You cannot castle if your king is in check, or if it would move into or through a square that is under attack by an enemy piece. Another special move involves the pawn. It is called en passant, which is French for in passing. This is a special pawn capture. It can only happen immediately after your opponent moves one of their pawns 2 squares forward from its starting position. If that pawn lands right next to one of your pawns, you have the option to capture it as if it had only moved 1 square. You move your pawn diagonally to the empty square behind the opponent's pawn and remove their pawn from the board. This special capture must be done on the very next turn, or the chance is lost forever. The final special move is pawn promotion, which we briefly mentioned earlier. This is a very exciting moment in a chess game. When one of your pawns successfully reaches the other side of the board, the 8th rank for white or the 1st rank for black, it must be promoted. You immediately replace the pawn with a new piece of your choice, a queen, a rook, a bishop, or a knight of the same color. You cannot choose a king or keep it as a pawn. Most of the time, players choose to promote to a queen because she is the most powerful piece. This can give you a huge advantage. The main goal in chess is to win the game by checkmating your opponent's king. To understand checkmate, you first need to understand check. A king is in check when it is under attack by an opponent's piece. This means that if the opponent's piece were to move on the next turn, it could capture the king. When you put your opponent's king in check, it is good etiquette to announce check. Your opponent is then forced to respond to the check immediately. They must get their king out of danger on their very next move. They cannot ignore the threat. When your king is in check, you have 3 possible ways to get out of it. First, you can move the king to a safe square that is not under attack. Second, you can block the check by placing one of your own pieces in the line of attack between the enemy piece and your king. This option is not possible if the check is from a knight, as knights can jump over other pieces. Third, you can capture the piece that is giving the check. You must do one of these 3 things. If you cannot do any of them, then your king is in checkmate, and you lose the game. Checkmate is the decisive moment of the game. It is when a king is in check, and there is no legal move to escape the attack. The game ends immediately. The player who delivered the checkmate wins. It does not matter how many pieces you have captured or how many pieces you have left on the board. If your king is checkmated, you lose. This is why protecting your king is so important throughout the game. All your attacks and strategies should ultimately lead to trapping the enemy king in a checkmate. It is the ultimate victory in chess. Sometimes a game can end without a checkmate. One way this can happen is through a stalemate. A stalemate is a specific type of draw. It occurs when it is a player's turn to move, but their king is not in check, and they have no legal moves they can make. Every possible move would either put their own king in check or is blocked. In this situation, the game is immediately declared a draw. This can be a frustrating outcome if you are in a winning position, so you must be careful not to accidentally stalemate your opponent when they have only a king left. Now that you know the rules, Let's talk about some simple strategies to start your game. The beginning of the game is called the opening. Your main goals in the opening are to control the center of the board, develop your pieces, and keep your king safe. Controlling the center, especially the four squares e4, d4, e5, and d5, is very important. Pieces in the center can move to more squares and have more influence over the game. A good first move for white is to move the king's pawn 2 squares forward to e4, or the queen's pawn 2 squares forward to d4. Developing your pieces means moving them off their starting squares and into active positions. You should aim to move your knights and bishops out early in the game. A good plan is to move your knights before your bishops, as knights are good at jumping over the initial pawn structure. A common opening sequence is to move a center pawn, then develop a knight, then develop a bishop. Try not to move the same piece multiple times in the opening. It is better to get all your pieces into the game. Also, avoid moving your queen out too early, as she can become a target. Keeping your king safe is a top priority. The center of the board can be a dangerous place for a king in the early and middle parts of the game. This is why castling is such a powerful move. You should aim to castle early, usually within the first 10 moves. Castling not only moves your king to the safety of the corner, behind a wall of pawns, but it also brings your rook into the action. Deciding whether to castle kingside or queenside depends on the position, but kingside castling is generally considered slightly safer and is more common for beginners. Here are a few extra tips for your first games. Before you make any move, always check to see if any of your pieces are under attack. Ask yourself, what did my opponent's last move do? This will help you avoid simple blunders. Also, think about the value of your pieces. Don't trade a valuable piece like a rook or queen for a less valuable piece like a knight or bishop unless you have a very good reason. And most importantly, always be on the lookout for checks and threats against both your king and your opponent's king. You now have all the knowledge you need to play a complete game of chess. You know how to set up the board, how each piece moves, and the special rules of the game. You understand the ultimate goal of Checkmate and the basic strategies for the opening. The most important step now is to start playing. Chess is a practical game. You will learn more from playing one game than from reading many books. Do not be afraid to make mistakes. Every chess player, even the world champion, makes mistakes. They are valuable learning opportunities. The best way to improve is to play regularly. Find a friend, a family member, or join a chess club at school or in your community. You can also play chess online on many websites and apps. Playing against different people will expose you to new ideas and strategies. After each game, try to think about what went well and what went wrong. If you can, go over the game with your opponent. Discussing the moves and sharing ideas is a fantastic way to learn. You will be surprised at how quickly you start to see improvements in your play. As you get more comfortable with the game, you can start to learn more advanced ideas. There are thousands of books, videos, and articles about chess strategy. You can study different openings, learn tactical patterns like forks and pins, and practice endgame techniques. Solving chess puzzles is also a great way to sharpen your skills. Puzzles present you with a specific position and challenge you to find the best move, often a checkmate. This helps you to recognize patterns and improve your calculation abilities, making you a stronger player. Most importantly, remember to have fun. Chess is a game to be enjoyed. It is a journey of endless discovery. There's always something new to learn, a new strategy to try, a new puzzle to solve. Celebrate your clever moves and your hard-fought victories. Don't be discouraged by losses. See them as lessons that will make you stronger. The world of chess is vast and fascinating, and you are just at the beginning of your adventure. So, set up the pieces, make your first move, and enjoy the beautiful game of chess. Good luck.